Well, not much to say. It is a very beautiful spring day, very cool. We've been having to run the heater at night. Also, a few names that I want to welcome to the family here. William C., Burl Henry, Sarah Wood, an anonymous donor. I'll just call you DSP. If you would like full credit, just let me know. And Dwayne. Thank you all for supporting the stream, and I can assure you that that support will help us put more videos up, and maybe we'll get to upgrade some of our equipment here. So let's take a look at our surface map. Looking at the southwestern U.S., we're under the influence of, well, most of the western and central part of the U.S. is under the influence of high pressure. Even out in the western U.S., this might look to be a very ordinary chart here, but you can see there in Arizona, there's actually winds out of the north. So let me find my cursor. There we go. And this is just kind of the rough streamline pattern. So this is originating from the Great Basin area. This is all very cool air that's descending and warming a little bit. So it does warm up into the 70s, but we're certainly not seeing 80s. And normally in April, we're definitely starting to see 80s popping up in Arizona, but not today. Out there in Texas, we're under the influence of this polar high, which has sunk down to the Oklahoma City area. Got that northerly flow all the way down to South Texas, and starting to get a little bit of that upslope starting to rear its head in West Texas. And even a few marginal VFR ceilings out there in the Amarillo area. North of the high pressure area, downslope. See that there in Colorado and Kansas? Although it's not much of a warm-up as far as downslope air, but it is sunny, and the dew points are pretty low. Looks like single digits there. There's our map for the southeastern U.S. Cold polar air moving all the way down through Alabama into the Atlanta area and through Asheville, but has not quite cleared southern Georgia or Florida, where we still have southwesterly winds and very warm conditions. You can see that 88-degree reading there northwest of Orlando, and even 90 north of Vero Beach. So this frontal system will continue hanging around the southern Georgia area into South Carolina. Should be a trigger for convection with those 60s dew points, and then it should gradually sink southward into Florida itself. Well, not much to say about this. In the northeast U.S., just high pressure dominating the region, and the way you analyze this is you look at the overall large picture, and this is telling us lots of high pressure through this part of the map and low pressure up in the north part of the map there. So in between, gradient bringing this westerly flow through, and it's a cold westerly flow since the air mass source region is central Canada. Lake effect snows already coming down there along the east shore of Lake Huron there, eastern shore of Lake Superior. So the snow is piling up once again there in Ontario, but we're probably going to see an end to this over the next couple weeks as things really start warming up and shifting into springtime. And there's a picture in the northwestern U.S. Looks like a new Alberta clipper coming down from northern Alberta there. It's probably the start of a new system coming into the U.S. there. Other than that, looks like just a little bit of troughing there in western South Dakota, and things transitioning very gradually in the northwestern U.S. itself. Looks like some Pacific air mass there over Oregon and the Great Basin area. That's probably in the process of modifying. And so we're just waiting for the next system to approach the area. Not much going on for this afternoon. And there's just a quick look at how things look in Europe. Definitely under the influence of high pressure, 1028 millibar high, centered over the Netherlands and Germany. And it's pretty cold for this time of year, lower 40s. That'd be around 5 Celsius. And that's bringing a cold northerly flow into France and Italy and helping to give some baroclinicity to this system down in Italy. That cold air coming out of the Balkan region. That's helping establish that frontal boundary and produce some of those clouds and low ceilings that we have there over Albania and Serbia there. So starting out the new week, it's definitely a good idea to look at the hemispheric pattern and look at the 300 millibar winds. This is up at about 30,000 feet, so we're looking near the top of the tropopause, or the top of the troposphere. So what do we see here? Very deep vortex out over Ontario. If it was January, this would probably be a record-breaking cold outbreak. This vortex is an extension of the big polar vortex, so this is all low heights through this region. And along with that, we've got pretty strong ridge extending up into Alaska. This is the kind of pattern where you hear about Alaska being warmer than some parts of the eastern U.S. That's could very well be the case this time around. That ridge is being caused by this warm air out over the northern Pacific, and that's helping to produce that jet across the western U.S. And let me try drawing that in blue. So it's giving us a pattern like that. It's very meridional. It's very amplified. There's like very large waves coming north and south, like what you see right there. So lots of waves, lots of wave activity. So as a consequence, what's happening is we're bringing down a lot of northerly flow out of Canada. So the air masses just kind of jump on the conveyor belt and head south, and that's what we got going on right now. So what we're going to see over the next week or two, well, getting into Thursday, looks like we have another trough coming down out of Canada. So that's going to support very likely a Alberta clipper. If there's one coming out of Canada, that's probably going to deepen as that trough links up with that. So I would expect conditions to be going downhill in the western Midwest region. So overall, not much change to the pattern. You can see that Hudson Bay vortex is very well established, and we're still pumping that northwesterly flow into the northern U.S. Now, another thing that kind of jumps out is the southern stream becomes active. See that there over the southern U.S., that's a lobe of the jet stream, and that's helping to become established. So I'm going to back that up so we can look at that better. See, when we start out there, it looks like maybe it's kind of hooked up a little bit with a subtropical jet, and then it really gets established. Looks like Saturday morning as that next wave comes out of the Pacific. So we're probably going to see rain chances start to go up in the southern U.S. once again heading into the weekend. Get into a split flow pattern, see how the Pacific is active across the southern U.S., and then we get that northern polar stream. This is for this weekend. And a nice series of waves coming in from the Pacific. So looks like a lot of chances for rain here lining up. And of course, some of that may start picking up the subtropical jet and start bringing moisture in. So we'll look at the precipitable water. And a very pronounced Rex block. See that right there? Got a low directly south of a high. That's a blocking pattern. So we'll see if that hangs on through the week. I would expect probably, yeah. Looks like this next wave coming in from the west tries to break it down, but it just rebuilds. And let's see what happens for next week, 23rd, 24th. We get another low developing there in California, so it's active once again for the western U.S., and this really digs in there towards Texas around the 27th. And we're getting to that time of the year where I would expect severe weather to start rearing its head because the Gulf is starting to warm. It's easier to bring moisture into the southern plains, and I think we're probably going to be getting into a little bit of a tornado season here later, like maybe the last week of April. I mean, this certainly looks like it could be one. And we're still kind of maintaining a blocking pattern. See that right there? Another Rex block. It's kind of moved a little bit into the western U.S. Kind of a very noisy pattern. Of course, we're getting to the end of the GFS run, so that could be out the window. We'll just have to see about that. But this tells me we'll probably have a lot to look at over the next couple weeks. Definitely not a boring pattern. That's for sure. All right, so let's get into the forecast. And before we get into the forecast, let's look at the precipitable water. Okay, so starting out, what's going on here? This is really a useful chart to look at because pressure and temperature is not the only thing we need to be concerned with. We need to start looking at moisture, especially with spring picking up here. So what do we got here? Well, it looks very dry across the U.S. and Canada. That's almost certainly a consequence of all that Canadian air, that cold Canadian air that's been building up. And you can see the high pressure areas extending all the way into British Columbia, and there's like more of it up into the polar ice pack area. So this is all cold polar air, and that's helping to drive out the moisture. Now there is some moisture out in the Gulf. That's probably going to be recirculated moisture that's come up from the Caribbean. So let's run this forward. Well, some of it makes its way into Texas late in the week. Not very much of it. You can see that's only that green. That's only about 3/4 of an inch. That's pretty low. You could still get storms going with that, but it's not going to be like some of the moisture we got last weekend. So moving forward into early next week, a few incursions of moisture up into Texas there, but yeah, it looks like gradually more and more starts making its way north. By the 22nd, midweek, you can see we're getting about 2 inches precipitable water. So that'll help fuel any Pacific storms coming eastward out of the Rockies. That's definitely enough to support some severe weather. And yeah, it looks like more chances for the southeast U.S. once again. And you can see it dries out across the U.S. once again as high pressure moves south. And then we get another fetch coming up for the weekend after the next one. 25th. Yeah, that's the weekend after this weekend. So here comes more moisture north. Some good 2-inch amounts. So I think our dry line is going to be active once again. Severe weather chances coming up quite a bit. And this is probably going to be what we would call chaseable weather. All the way up into Kansas and maybe Iowa there. So anyway, that moves eastward. More cold air comes south. We rebuild the moisture there in the Rio Grande for the 30th. And that brings us to our last panel there. But even this very last panel does look a little bit cold, with more of that high pressure area settling in over Texas. And that gives us kind of that easterly flow there into the Big Bend. Now they have another product that's pretty interesting, precipitable water anomaly. You might find that useful. That kind of shows, I'm not too sure what we're comparing that to, I guess seasonal or monthly normals, perhaps. But let's see what that shows us. The green should be higher than normal, the brown lower than normal. So that might help some of these areas stand out a little bit more. And what I'm seeing here is kind of the same pattern as we saw with the absolute values. Yeah, this indicates almost certainly a dry line, active dry line there for Thursday next week. Wednesday. That's Thursday at 0Z, which is Wednesday evening. So, yeah, dry line active probably in a week. More cold air coming south. Moisture comes back up north. Dry line active once again for Sunday, the 26th. Yeah, there we go. So I guess we have enough to look at our forecast now. So here's our NAM. In fact, let me advance. Yeah, that's for this evening. There's that front that we saw in the surface analysis there in the Carolinas. Kind of the back edge of it extending up the Rio Grande into New Mexico. And northerly flow in Texas, southerly flow in Colorado and New Mexico, and things are pretty tranquil out west. But we can see that new system starting to come together there in Alberta. And remember, that does have upper level support, and we can see the snow and rain showers already coming together there. Also, with that system there in the Carolinas, we're getting a little bit of isentropic lift north of that, helping to produce some snow showers there in West Virginia and Maryland. Okay, running that forward into tomorrow, you can really see that system coming together there in Wyoming. See already by 18Z, midday, snow coming down out around Casper and Gillette. Looks like that kind of moves south and towards the Evanston, Cheyenne corridor. Then by evening, we got a pretty good snowstorm there in Wyoming. Gusty northerly winds along that interstate there, so it's going to be bad once again for trucks moving through that corridor. And I guess the fronts are going to be running something about like that. And let's see, what else do we see here? I can see a ridge. Yeah, this whole thing is basically a big ridge extending all the way down to the Gulf. So east of that ridge, northerly flow, and west of that ridge, the southerly flow starting to come up from the Gulf. Overnight into Thursday morning, kind of a mini winter storm coming together there around Fort Collins, Cheyenne, back into the higher elevations of north central Colorado, and even some snow bands out around Grand Island and North Platte. And I would expect the dry line to become active, because once you get this cyclonic flow there in Colorado, the dry line likes to get established. And we would probably find it something like that for Thursday morning. Then during the evening, that system starts surging southward. And there's the frontal positions. The western periphery being hung up by the mountains. Not making much progress there, but you can see in the plains, different story. Front surging south towards Amarillo, down to Watonga and Ponca City and Wichita. And some snow bands moving eastward into Iowa. And also keep in mind that this is implying the moisture is surging north across Texas and Oklahoma. Probably not very much of it. In fact, let's look at a skew-t real quick. This will be around Tyler, Kaufman. Yeah, 51 Fahrenheit, not much moisture, and it tapers off to 40s there, just off the surface. Pretty good hook there on that photograph there, if we had some instability. All right, let's see here. Okay, getting into Friday morning. Cold front moves into Texas and Arkansas there. Snowband moves eastward from Iowa into the Detroit, Chicago area. So probably a bit of a white blanket there Friday morning in Chicago. And let's see, getting to the end of the sequence for Friday evening. Yep, the weekend is almost on us once again. There's the cold front moving into the south central U.S., clearing Nashville, Memphis, and coming up on New Orleans. And looks like another spell of bad weather there around the New York City area is that little Alberta Clipper makes its way eastward and impacts the eastern coast region. And I can see another one lining up there at the top of the screen. That's probably going to be our next punch coming southward. So for now, it looks pretty quiet, but I think we will be getting into some severe weather here in about a week. And we will cover that, and we will do some special streams. I'm probably going to go ahead and try to do a few live streams on one of these severe weather days, because, you know, when an opportunity presents itself, we might as well give it a shot. And I would expect we'll probably do that mostly for the supporters and put up a private stream for that, but maybe one or two of these streams we'll just do those live for everybody. We'll just have to see how things look next week. Okay, well, let me get this wrapped up. We'll get it edited and posted. That process takes about an hour to an hour and a half, and hopefully we'll get this on its way to you. All right, thanks everybody. I hope you are all doing good and in good health. And we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.